Boom! It's almost Halloween, folks. Little jump scare for you. Welcome to another exhilarating set of notes from Professor Kolka tonight, as I go with my professor look to educate you young minds. Today we're going to discuss cells and tissues. Let's get to it. Alright, so we've done a bunch of stuff on cells already, and you saw some of the cells we're going to discuss today, like the ciliated columnar epithelium, and some of the other epithelial cells, meaning the outside layer and probably the second layer of the skin. We'll get to that a little bit later when we discuss the integumentary system. But here's some definitions that you have to have. One is, what is a tissue? And a tissue is characterized as groups of cells and their extracellular materials that are similar in structure and perform a common or related function. All right, that's a definition that you're going to have to know. I'm going to ask you that on our upcoming quiz as an open-ended. I'm going to ask you to please define tissues, okay? Tissue is woven, and there's 4 primary tissues that interweave to form the fabric of the body, meaning that they come together to do so. The 4 types of tissues are the epithelial, which we discussed already and saw in lab, connective tissue, which you already saw, muscle tissue, again, you drew it, and nervous tissue. So these are not new to you, but now we're going to discuss a little bit more about their physiology. And as we know, histology is the study of tissues. So we're going to focus on epithelial tissues. If you see up top here, epithelium is singular and epithelia is plural. Also need to know the difference between those two for the upcoming quiz. All right, epithelial occur as sheets of cells that cover a body surface or line a body cavity. I'm going to show you an example of a slide that's in a lumen, and you'll see that lumen is down here. A lumen is the cavity of a tubular organ, such as the intestine or blood vessel, almost always responsible or in correlation with the intestine. When you look at them in textbooks or when we discuss it, it'll probably mostly be in the intestine. They cover exposed surfaces, skin, and cover organs. They line internal passageways and chambers. They form glands, and they produce glandular secretions. This is all the stuff epithelia does. All right. Also, another good open-ended question here. Maybe like, what's the purpose of epithelial? And you can list, say, 2 of these 4. So here is a close-up of the epithelial lumen cells. Now, what you can identify here is you can see little cilia up here, and then you can see these up and down columns, which we already drew and saw. Do you remember what they're called? So they're the ciliated columnar epithelium, or epithelia. All right, we already drew them, but this is them in an intestine. Just wanted to show you that close-up. This set of the notes talks about the functions of the epithelia, and you'll see that it's protection, absorption, filtration, and excretion. And in protection, forming a barrier that separates the environments. And we talked about that's what the skin does in general. Absorption, intake of fluids or other substances. Filtration, the flow of a fluid through a filter. The membrane in this case will act like a filter. Excretion, separate and eliminate wastes. If you remember a few slides ago, I talked about secretion, the passage of material formed by a cell to its exterior. And can you think of anything you might excrete? Saliva is one. Salivary glands have to excrete saliva to help you digest food. It's the first part of digestion. And sensory reception, meaning nerve cells. Epithelia have a special characteristic, and that is the ability to form closely tied together sheets. So your skin is layers upon layers of sheets of cells, and this is unique to epithelial cells. Other cells don't do that. Blood cells don't do that, and other cells in the body, they don't do that. So there's a special characteristic called cellularity. Okay, other things about epithelial cells, they are avascular. A meaning lacking or none, vascular meaning have blood vessels. So avascular means they have no blood vessels in that area. And you're like, whoa, skin cells have blood vessels. You really don't, because the top layer of your skin, you can scrape that right off. I'm sure you've done that before. You've fallen to the ground, you've scraped it off, and it hasn't bled. You just see it go away. It's because it doesn't have blood vessels. The second layer has the blood vessels or is vascularized. Okay? They are, however, innervated, meaning stimulation of a part through the action of nerves, meaning you've got nerve cells in there, which is why you can feel pain, which is why you can feel temperature changes. Okay, first, when you see the slide, it's packed with words. It's much easier. This is your textbook's note sheet that's on Canvas for you. It comes right from the textbook. You don't need all these terms. All you need to know here is that polarity exists, and the apical surface is the free surface of the tissue exposed to the body exterior to the cavity. What that means is the apical surface is the top layer. That's all it means. And the basal surface is the bottom layer. So when you're taking your notes, you say it has polarity, and there's a top surface called the apical and a bottom surface called the basal. That's all you have to know about this section. And the last part about epithelial cells is that they regenerate easily. All right, your skin cells grow back when you get a cut, so you want to think about skin cells when you're thinking about this type of cell. They're continuous, the replacement of epithelial cells that are damaged or lost. All right, constant continuation and replacement. Epithelial cells may only survive a day or two, depending upon where they're located. Cells shed or destroyed by chemicals and pathogens, disease-causing organisms, can grow back, or they can get destroyed right after, and then a new set grows back. And stem cells are found in the deepest layer of the epithelium. And remember that stem cells are cells that have not developed into anything yet. That's why they're harvested and used for science research to try and develop them into whatever we'd like to use them for. Well, that's it for this set of notes, so come on back in and we'll talk about it later.